Sup? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories, and oh my god, I have a really bad headache right now. Oh good lord, owie, my head. I'm gonna get some Tylenol, and we're just gonna go ahead and just jump into some RPG horror stories before my head gets worse. Oh my god. Damsel in distress. This is my first post, but my brother-in-law suggested I share this story here after I told him about it. It's pretty short and ultimately has a resolution, but there's still horror in the middle. I'm part of a few different games, but the one where this particular story takes place is one where I am both the youngest, early 20s, while the other players are mid-20s to early 30s, and I'm also the only female player character. I'm a recent addition to the group along with the one other player. Despite having a group of about 5 players, there's really only 2 individuals that need to be specified aside from myself. Rogue, the source of the horror, Barbarian, the other recent addition to the group, and honestly super cool. For some context, both Barbarian and myself were part of another group where Rogue was the DM. We were invited to join this group after the end of the campaign, and the group disbands due to scheduling. Anyways, in that group, Rogue has a habit of not shutting up about how attracted the elves in his world were whenever there were elves. It was kinda weird, but it didn't happen too often, so I really only noticed it in hindsight. In this campaign, I play a Sea Elf Warlock, which unfortunately will be rather relevant. This incident occurred during the 3rd session Barbarian and I had ever played with this particular group. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say it has something to do with you being an elf and elves being hot and stuff, and a rogue having the hots for the elf or something along the lines of that. I don't know. This is just a guess. But maybe you just make it too easy for me. I don't know. Our party was in the midst of planning on how to attack a bandit camp that has taken a merchant we were guarding captive. We spent a good amount of time strategizing and trying to come up with a solid plan against the fortifications. We'd settled on a plan and we're about to put it into action when out of nowhere Rogue turns to me. "Wait, as an elf, how attractive would you say you are?" I stared at him for a second before somehow growing his spine and asking him what his whole deal with elves was. I brought up how he always went on and on about how hot elves were in this campaign. He shrugged and said, "Because elves are hot in my world. Anyway, the reason I ask is because what if we had you go to the entrance of the bandit camp and pretend to be just some maiden and charm them? That would work, right?" I was, quite frankly, in shock. Thankfully, I saved from having to come up with an immediate response because all the other players immediately turned to him and said, "That's a terrible idea." Spending the next few moments chastising him for even suggesting that. Barbarian even said, "This isn't Looney Tunes," and told him how dangerous it would be to send a party member into a bandit camp by themselves. That really depends on the kind of campaign you're running and the kind of things DM allows. Let's say, for example, your character is indeed somebody that wants to kind of sneak in and just use the charm and wits and kind of blend in and basically like control the crowd, control the sights. Maybe they come in as an entertainer, a dancer, a really renowned drum player that can play a sick drum solo or something, and they're just coming in and showing off the charm saying, "Oh, me, Grognak the Brognak, the most amazing drum solo player ever. I just was passing by around town and I thought I could maybe stop by your camp and play some tunes for you guys. Plus I could use a little bit of rest for the night since I don't want to travel the deathly roads. If I could perform to stay the night just to rest up and get some food for my travels, I'd really appreciate it." You know, but it really depends on the kind of character you're playing. Unless the player really wants the character to go do that and like charm the entire bandit camp, probably best not to do that. And honestly, big kudos on the rest of the party for immediately interjecting saying, "That's a terrible idea, why would you do that?" When the scolding died down, I turned to Rogue and said, "I'm not going to damsel in distress my way through any encounters. That's not the kind of game I'm here to play, and it's not the kind of character I've made." As the DM was having us roll for initiative in preparation for combat, I heard Barbarian say to Rogue, "Would you be willing to go do that?" Rogue replied with something along the lines of, "Well, yeah, if I had to, but..." My guess is he's only said that because he was getting defensive. Anyways, if the rest of my group hadn't come to my defense, I'll probably make an excuse for why I can't join them anymore. Knowing that the rest of the group had my back and seeing me as part of the group is really comforting, and it's what allows me to look at the situation and just sort of laugh. Weirdly enough, it helped me move past some of the insecurities I was having with being both the only girl and the youngest in the group. I was worried that we're going to assume that I was inexperienced or immature, but I think it's safe to say that I've accepted me as one of their own. Hopefully I won't be back here with any stories from this particular group. Thanks for reading. There's not much of a horror story per se. Like, we don't have an elf that's like a complete utter misogynist, tries to make me become a damsel in distress and use my womanly charm to seduce all the bandits or something. Like, it didn't go super bad. It's just the rogue basically just asking, hey, is your character hot? You could go and like charm the bandits over there. And the rest of the party said, that's a horrible idea. And that's basically it. Weirdly enough, we didn't even get anything from the DM here. I'm kind of surprised the DM has no presence in the story except to basically be like, okay guys, just roll initiative. Probably because the DM had no idea this was even going on. They were just setting up the thing and they just kind of looked away. It's like, okay, yeah, okay, so we're gonna have the bandit here and the bandit there, and this is up right CR. Please guys, just roll initiative and just completely just ignore the entire conversation going off on the side. Anyway, let's get to the next story for today. Manchild Murderhobo forbids his daughter from playing D&D after he dies in-game. So a few months ago, I was playing D&D with some friends from school. We're all in high school and play at DM's house since it's the closest one of the school. So we just walked down there on Fridays. We were playing a dragon heist campaign that had sort of gone off the rails. By the time our DM's dad decided he wanted to play D&D with us and begged his daughter to let him in, it was practically a homebrew campaign. He always kind of struck us as the wannabe cool type of dad, and he was a massive Lord of the Rings fan and a general medieval fantasy nerd, so it didn't surprise us that he really wanted to play D&D with us. She did eventually relent and let him play as he guilt-tripped her into it. He rolled up a Dragonborn fighter, soon to be gunslinger, and being a new player decided that he was going to play his character as a raging, chaotic, evil lunatic who murders people indiscriminately for loot and land that he could never hope to hold for obvious reasons. So, your dad is a murder hobo. Let's talk about it. That is such a weird situation to be put into. I think probably should have told your dad, no dad, you can't be a murder hobo. I'm not gonna let you play a murder hobo. Reroll your character. Actions have consequences. Actually, you know, maybe this is actually what's gonna happen. His actions are gonna have consequences. Dad's gonna get butthurt and says, daughter, no more D&D for you. Probably. It didn't take long for him to get himself in a situation he could not run away from like he usually does. We end up exploring a keep owned by a local baron near Waterdeep. He was going to talk to us about giving us a magic item to fight off a local dragon that routinely springs forth from the Underdark. DM's dad told us, this is gonna sound crazy, but I think we should kill the baron and boundly gag his wife and kids so they will give us both the magic items and control of the barony. The guards won't be able to stop us since his son and heir will be forced to make them stand down. We can use the wife and daughter for other purposes. And Jesus, your dad is actually a freak. Should have told mom. We all said this was not something they were gonna do. We had a way of getting the item safely and we have no use for his keep. I even said, just because you're a murder hobo doesn't mean we all are. But then he started yelling and saying, but I want some freaking land already. We told him that Waterdeep has meant of acquiring land through great feats. We just have to be patient. DM also said, remember how many heavily armed guards they are, Dad? The quest is much safer. Unfortunately, when the Baron came back with his family by his side, he said, I'll pull out my blunderbuss and blow the Baron's head clean off. He failed to hit, rolled a total of 8. So the Baron then started casting Eldritch Blast on him and the party put up our hands. I even told him, we had nothing to do with this. This is between you and the Dragonborn. Guards then started rushing up as they heard the commotion and we backed off. This enraged him as he started freaking out of game and questioned how the Baron had warlock powers, and then he accused us of tricking him into situations, and then without realizing it, admit he was the one trying to trick us into fighting by banking on the Baron assuming we were in on the attack, and us assuming that the Baron would assume that and attacking him. That's a lot of assumptions. My brain is going to assume that it's just not in the right place right now. Let's continue. The fight continued until he got down to like 10 HP. He then freaked out and said, I find the nearest window and jump into the river. DM said, Dad, are you sure you want to do this? As the rest of us kind of chuckled as he just yelled at her, yes! They all got opportunity attacks and technically downed him, but he demanded the right to at least make it out the window with one final jump. He was hoping he could at least make it to the river and get whisked away by the current. This was insane because it was a 300-foot fall. There was a decent chance he would unironically die on impact. How many d6s do you roll for that again? Like 98 d6? Is that what it is? I don't know. I have no idea. Which he did after DM told her dad to roll acrobatics and he crit failed, splitting his head on a rock and took 30 d6 worth of damage and died on the spot. DM's dad then got really pissed and started screaming at his daughter right then and there, and accused her of pulling things out of her ass to kill him off. It was ugly. She was crying and even offering him a chance to get resurrected. He even accused her of hating him. Oh my god, dude, you're screaming at your daughter over D&D because your character died because you did something stupid, and to call your daughter out for hating you. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It's not rocket science. He then stormed off into his room as we all sat there in silence. One of our party members was kind of tone deaf and asked her, "What happened to the rest of our characters during the dad's shenanigans?" And she just said, "You're fine, we'll talk about it next week." We asked if there was anything we could do, but she said no. Next day, she texted us informing us that she was no longer allowed to play D&D because her dad decided all of a sudden that it was satanic and promoted PDF file format. Huh? He was also apparently banned us from his house and said we were a bad influence and only wanted one thing from her. Yeah, sure, jackass. So the guy died because he played stupid games and won a stupid prize, and then decided he's gonna go, "This game is satanic panic mode," and just something about PDF file format, and apparently the rest of our friends just wanted to, I guess get together with a DM or something. I can't believe it. We haven't texted her since. It was summer by this point, and her dad took away her phone, presumably, as she went silent. I personally went to her house at one point, and her dad answered the door after hastily barging down the stairs. She was playing a video game. She was clearly happy to see me, but her dad just coldly told me, "I'm sorry, but you're not welcome in this house again. Do not contact me or my daughter." And then he promptly shut the door. It's honestly infuriating, and I hate that we won't be able to see her until next school year. What kind of grown man does all of this over a freaking D&D game? How? Just how does a middle-aged man with children have such little emotional maturity? I've never despised a man more than I despise him. I really have nothing positive to say now. It's just a fricked up situation, but because we're teenagers, we have no freaking agency. There gotta be something completely wrong with it for you to become such a man-child that you can't emotionally handle your character dying in a D&D game. You gotta start screaming at your daughter over it. Good lord. Well, there is one thing y'all can do. You can just play D&D online without her dad knowing. But I mean, he might get mad. I don't know, man. This situation's messed up, honestly. You know what I would do? I would heavily consider just setting up a gaming club at your school. Don't say it's exactly for D&D, maybe just for board games and stuff, and have her talk to her dad and try to soften up about the whole idea. And just play D&D like that, or play it online. I don't know, there's multiple ways to do it. I mean, Roll20 and other free VTTs out there is a great way to play it. If you really want to keep playing together, continue like that. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales tomorrow. Bye-bye.